Good, bad, or ugly, we are going to start talking about the first edition Pathfinder Shifter. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here to talk to you today about the first edition Pathfinder Shifter class. That's right, we are beginning our guide, our look into this particular class, and even though my update video earlier in the week had kind of given it away, this class is kind of broken in the worst way possible in that it's really not all that effective. It was designed to be a newcomer-friendly kind of class, just easy to get into for people who'd never played Pathfinder or other tabletop RPGs before, and in a way they succeeded because it's not super complicated, but they went so hard in that easy to pick up direction that with everything they've put together, they've come up with something that just doesn't work all that well. It's not all that effective, especially in comparison to other classes. Certainly if you read any of the comments underneath that video, you come to that conclusion pretty damn quickly. But before we get into everything we have on hand here, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now let's start talking about things here with the Pathfinder Shifter. Shift, click, kill. Well, at least if only it could have been that easy. So, to begin with, for the particular ancestry you want to pick out, human definitely easily makes the top of the list, as it does for just about every class that you could possibly throw it into. They get a flexible +2 bonus to any particular stat wherever you want to set it, an extra feat and an extra skill point at first level and every level thereafter. They also get a pretty good favored class bonus as well, getting bonuses to their to the amount of time that they're able to shift into their different aspects. However, they do also benefit from getting extra hit points and extra skill points, although in this case I would say if you were to default to anything, take the extra hit points. And really, that's it. No, really. Anything else that might give bonuses to strength and dexterity, whichever one of those physical stats you want to lean into, will be important, as well as bonuses to wisdom. But those particular races also have other features that are useful and end up lost when you shift into your other aspect forms. And why is that important? Why does that matter when you wild shape as a druid, you lose access to those as well? Well, the thing is that as a druid, you have more that you can do beyond just wild shaping. You can remain outside of your wild shape and spellcast. You also have an animal companion to boot. So really, overall, the druid is just head and shoulders above the shifter. In particular, the druid also does better at wild shaping than the shifter does, and wild shaping is the shifter's core class feature, so that's not great all the way around right there. That's just very, very, very bad, especially for a class that's really focused on getting in and really throwing down in the midst of melee combat. So, going on from there, since we know we want to go into combat, this is the stat array we want to go with. Now, this assumes a 25-point buy for your stats. If you're using fewer points or rolling for stats, then follow this particular order. The second row of numbers is an example for a 20-point buy. So to start off, we want to really lean into strength, going with an 18 if you have 25, or 16 if you're doing a 20-point buy. Then we want to lean into wisdom because wisdom affects our ability to shift into our different animal aspects. This is going to remain a 14 whichever way you go. Then we have Constitution at a 13 here because we wanted to put the extra points into Strength. However, if you do a 20-point buy, you might want to do just a little bit more of a spread in this case and bump up to a 14 there. Because Dexterity we have at a 13 to get a +1 modifier. Now, at a 12, you still get a +1 modifier, but a Dex of 13 means you put 1 point into it, and now you're up to a 14, gaining a +2 bonus to your Dexterity, your Armor class, several of your skills, reflex saves. Dexterity is just that prime stat that affects so much, it never hurts to have a good Dexterity score. Now, the two dump stats that we have are Intelligence and Charisma. However, I'm never really the greatest fan of tanking Intelligence too hard just because I like having my skill points and I don't want to take penalties to any of that, even if I'm not getting a bonus out of it. However, if you really wanted to, you could tank down Intelligence down to say a 9 or an 8, get a couple extra points to play with and put into either your Constitution or Dexterity score and have those boosted up just a little bit more. And then Charisma is going to be tanked at a 7. We're not doing anything with Charisma because this class is already mad as it is. Mad being multiple attribute or ability dependent. That means we have to really count on our strength because we want to hit and we want to deal damage when we hit. And then Dexterity is great for your defense, or if you're going into a Dexterity focused build, then you're going to want your Dexterity cranked up. And then Constitution is going to be helpful because, again, you're going into the thick of melee combat. You're going to be fighting. You're going to get hit, meaning you want to have the hit points to be able to keep up and active in the fight. And then Wisdom is going to be important because, again, that affects your ability to shift into your animal aspects, whether it's the major forms or the minor forms. So definitely a multiple ability dependent class, but by going with this particular array, we cut that down a little bit by really emphasizing strength and then having wisdom as the next highest value. But again, if you want to flip the script a little bit, you can instead choose to lean into dexterity, which from a min-maxing standpoint, that might actually work a bit better because that affects your defense, initiative, your reflex saves, several of your skills. I mean, we already talked about this. Dexterity can do a lot for you, and with 1 or 2 feats, you can actually start applying your dexterity to damage. But we have to get into that a little bit later. So, moving on from your stats, we have traits. Now, traits are definitely something that's a bit flexible depending on what you want to build into and what you want to do. However, because this class is already so far behind the curve, we probably want to lean into a bit more min-maxing than I'd otherwise like. Normally, I like having classes and characters built with more story and thematic things in mind. I'm not really so concerned about min-maxing because I'll adjust encounters and adventures to what the party's composition is, what the character classes are like, and I also will give other miscellaneous bonuses to a character over the course of an adventure as the story develops. Something that just kind of fits in the moment with what's been going on. But traits, some of the traits you want to look at, especially since we're really focusing on humans for this build, we have Bred for War, which is human only. This gives a +1 trait bonus to Intimidate and your combat maneuver bonus. So tripping, grappling, disarming. This gives you a bonus to all of those just because it's a combat maneuver bonus. And Intimidate's not a bad skill all the way around. It's only a shame in this instance because we're tanking Charisma so much. So that could almost be written off right there for that. But the combat maneuver bonus is nice and is worth it. Next, however, is Reactionary, and this one's great no matter the class, no matter the build, because it's a +2 bonus to your initiative. That'll stack with your Dexterity modder. You take the improved initiative feat, hey, there you go. You now have that all on top of the bonus there, ensuring that you're able to go faster sooner, and that's important for getting the drop on enemy casters. Then we have, last but not least, Dirty Fighter. It's a +1 damage bonus on every attack made against an opponent you're flanking, and ideally, you want to be flanking as much as possible. Not only for this +1 damage bonus, but for a +2 bonus on every attack that you make. Not that you'll necessarily have the most because you're doing natural attacks, though you do get bonuses to help out with that later on through your various class features. You still want to maximize the amount of damage that you're doing possible. Because, say early on that you're not able to be in your shifter form, your aspects, and early on you may not actually have that as an option. Getting the +4 bonus from your 18 strength and this +1 damage right here, that's 5 damage right off the bat. 6 damage including the die roll that you get out of it. So that's pretty good to start off with, especially if you're flanking. And if you have casters that you're working with, whether it's a druid, sorcerer, summoner, wizard, if they are using any of their summon monster or summon nature's ally abilities, they can set those creatures up in position to help provide you flanking bonuses to really make you start to go to work very effectively. But again, that all just kind of depends. That really all does just sort of depend. And this is just the start of our journey. Taking a look at the Pathfinder shifter. It's gonna be a rough one. I'm not overall impressed with the class. I don't hate it. It's just, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Even with the FAQ additions and changes made to it, it's just not super great. And again, my recommendation would be to either work with your DM to homebrew in a couple of things, a couple of fixes, or see if your DM will let you go with one of the more effective archetypes overall. And we'll discuss the archetypes later. Not something I typically do. And for those of you watching who may have asked about me doing archetype builds for your characters, I'll certainly get to those as soon as possible. Like I mentioned, things can be a little bit dicey, a little bit busy around here at the Gamer's Den. But before I start rambling on, we're going to wrap up there, so let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Go on down to the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are. Hit those like or dislike buttons, and we'll engage in discussion. Have you DMs or players out there ever run a shifter or had a shifter run in your campaigns? If so, let me know what your experiences were like. Did it actually work out okay, or is it about as bad as everybody says and about as bad as it looks so far? And remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.